Welcome to the channel. Gaming has had an iconic character that's memorable in design and the game they started in. Arcade machines took gaming to the first level, entertaining everyone who went to the arcade. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System is part of Nintendo's best console ever to be sold. Alongside Rare, it was the most potent dynamic duo ever formed, while Nintendo got the chance to create a game that made history with a character we all know and love. Except this character was an antagonist in their first appearance, yet using his name for a title. That's right, good old Donkey Kong, the arcade game that made phenomenal sales, selling over 4,000 units a month, and by 1982 sold over 60,000 and grossing over $180 million in that time. The arcade game was simple: save the damsel in distress and defeat Donkey Kong. Easier said than done as you progress through each level, the more complex the challenges. The only controls were a joystick and 3 buttons, as you jump over the barrel that Donkey Kong tosses, and the rest was ridiculous. There's fall damage. Aside from the challenge, the game looked impressive when it was released. Arcade games were revolutionary and became the new medium. It was like an adventure to save the pretty lady against a formidable foe that only made your time harder. After the successful ape got onto the scene, it was only a matter of time before Nintendo decided to make Donkey Kong portable for the Nintendo Game Boy. It was the same premise, but allowed you to perform acrobatics, adding more items and intricate designs for each level. It was a great way to experience Donkey Kong on the go, the presentation similar to the arcade machine, and overcoming levels with new features and designs to test your skills. Now it was time to take it a step further.
Oh, these are pretty cool bananas.
In 1994, Nintendo and Rare collaborated to create a brand new Donkey Kong game that changed the script. We were introduced to Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, a 2D side-scrolling platformer with a unique style and art direction. During this time, Nintendo and Rare found a way to implement a 3D model of Donkey Kong and translate it into a 2D game. With the incredible level design, bonus levels, Easter eggs, and epic music alongside this game, it was an absolute hit. Nobody could ever forget the iconic game that simply set the bar of the golden age of gaming, while selling over 9.3 million copies worldwide. The game's soundtrack was rated highly since composer David Wise was a masterclass for Donkey Kong's music department. It wasn't over till they released sequels that followed the same formula, but with new characters to keep the pace of each game fresh and exciting in gameplay and storytelling. It's what made the game so entertaining to play in people's childhood, and it made an impression on them. Exploring more of the game and being rewarded, the replayability of revisiting the game to experience a fun adventure you love so much, taking on challenging levels, reaching new islands, and earning many bananas. Soon, it was time to step it up. It was insane, no one could ever believe it, but playing video games in 3D? No way. Except, it was true, and what better game to do that than Diddy Kong Racing. This was the first Donkey Kong game to be released in 3D, and it doesn't have Donkey Kong in the name. Instead, it featured DK's best bud Diddy Kong, a racing game made for the Nintendo 64. The game had Diddy and his friends defeat a pig wizard.
Okay!
After Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64 was a living example among the rest of the best 3D titles on the Nintendo 64. Rare had done it again, but this time expanding the game to be much larger than Banjo-Kazooie. It even needed an expansion pack to run on the Nintendo 64. It introduced brand new characters and returning ones for this game. You can play each Kong character to collect specific bananas, activate switches, use different abilities, and more than this game should have. Yet it was developed by such an ambitious team, making it the best 3D Donkey Kong game ever, selling over 5 million copies along with the success of Pokemon Stadium, Super Smash Bros., and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The game was also composed by Grant Kirkhope, who worked on Banjo-Kazooie and gave Donkey Kong a voice.
Yeah!
However, in 2002, Microsoft purchased Rare, taking their IP characters and leaving Nintendo to work on games for the Xbox. So this shifted the focus of Donkey Kong and his gameplay from here on out. It also meant that it would be a while before Donkey Kong returned in another platforming adventure. In 2003, the Nintendo GameCube introduced Donkey Konga, a rhythm game that included bongos. I never had this, but from what I heard, these hurt. In 2004, Mario vs. Donkey Kong was released for the Game Boy Advance, where it became a remade version of the original Donkey Kong arcade game, this time making it more of a puzzle platformer instead. You play as Mario to find Donkey Kong and save Paulina. This did release sequels for different DS games, which were relatively good and fun if you like puzzle games. Eventually, we did get another Donkey Kong platformer style adventure game in Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, released for the GameCube and re-released for the Wii, where you traverse through 16 kingdoms in the game while collecting bananas and performing stylish moves and rapid momentum, but also going through each boss battle to become the king of the jungle. Although the game would be rated highly, it wasn't the most popular Donkey Kong game to be released. The big takeaway from this was the legacy it branched out to. After Jungle Beat, Nintendo used its mechanics and assets to create Super Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2, and they were praised as the best 3D Mario games to be made. It was all thanks to Jungle Beat's gameplay, refining it into a new game and making the experience enjoyable. It's 2010, a year to remember since it felt like games were going retro. Speaking of retro Studios was the next development team to work on the next Donkey Kong game. Then Nintendo revealed Donkey Kong Country Returns. After a decade from the mainline Donkey Kong Country series, this was like how you remember it, only now with a new art direction. Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong working together to get their bananas back from these tiki-like creatures from the volcano. In this new co-op adventure, you can finally relive the experience from the original games. With more platforming challenges, incredible work to detail, animation, and more secrets to unlock, this became another hit as DK did return to what he does best, selling over 6 million copies and getting another version for the 3DS. Who said you didn't want to play it on the go? Usually this new fun adventure brings out the most of the original games, adding more features, and applies new mechanics to enhance the experience of the game. The next question for Nintendo was, how do we make it better? To answer that question, they simply said, let's add some ice. So in 2014, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was released for the Wii U. Let me just say, I didn't think you could make Donkey Kong's fur look better. I'm still trying to understand this. The graphics speak volume based on how the rest of the game looks. The impeccable detail added to make the game feel and look pleasing to play. The immersion added for each level and how you interact with it. I mean, it's so beautiful. Not only do the graphics speak volumes, but turn up your speakers, you're gonna want to hear this. The man, the myth, and the legend, David Wise returns to destroy the soundtrack and give us the best music I've ever heard. This guy adapts his music in a majestic, upbeat, funky, and downright hypnotic way. The instruments he uses for different stages and enhancing his greatest and classic hits from the original game and reharmonizes them, altering them and evolving them creatively. I could go on, but go and listen to the music, I beg of you at this point. While the game has a simple plot, the gameplay brings a new experience and allows you to progress through each level in intriguing ways, while showing a small story developing throughout each island you visit. But I will never forget the best thing since we got the Nintendo Switch version of the game. Funky Kong mode, making the game more enjoyable with a bit easier difficulty. You can use Funky's surfboard to glide, save you from spikes, and surf faster underwater. He can roll non-stop and has more lives to spare. This new addition left me with a massive smile on my face while replaying this game with Funky Kong. This became the most recent Donkey Kong game, and we haven't gotten a new mainline Donkey Kong Country game for a while. It may be his last or maybe not, but we'll never know. He has appeared in Mario spin-off games and finally became part of a movie. I look forward to watching it since he'll be played by Seth Rogen. I still believe Donkey Kong games are iconic, and I miss the chance of playing each one that made them so fun to play in the first place. And it's a franchise that people want more of. The way it inspired and gave enjoyment to us as kids, and how we've grown up from the series, but also getting the chance to meet the composers and the people who worked on these games. I'm not exactly sure what Retro Studios will do next. No one has seen or heard from Metroid Prime 4, but I hope we'll get answers soon, or know if they're doing okay. Time will only tell, but fingers crossed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more videos.